Gerald came careening around the corner of Glendale and Wilson in his 1995 Buick Skylark to the tune of Billy Joel's piano solo from Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, which was struggling to stay in tune on the worn-out audio cassette in his dash. He grinned ear to ear, taking the turn like a Formula One race driver. Beside him, in a fit of hysterical laughter, sat Patty, his beloved wife and now partner in crime, gripping the handlebar above the passenger window, which was slightly open, and leaning out, letting the wind catch her hair. Patty was 76, and today was her last day on Earth. "Did you see the look on her face?" Gerald belted in his hard-of-hearing old man voice.
"I always hated that cat,"
Patty shouted back slowly and precisely. "Popped its head like a water balloon." "Pop!" Gerald continued. They laughed again as Gerald pulled the car behind a pharmacy and stole a quick peck on the lips from his wife. "What's next?" Patty removed a worn-out and wrinkled pocket-sized notebook with a black cardboard cover from her purse, thumbed it open to the last page, clicked her pen, and put a wobbly old lady scribble through the line that read, "Toby the cat ripped my pant leg, bit me once too."
"Jocelyn cut me off at a red light last week."
"Oh, I told you that wasn't her."
"Okay, fine."
She scribbled it out.
"What about Doreen?"
Gerald grinned. Doreen watered her plants on the bluest blue sky day of her life. A yellow and black butterfly circled the royal blue towers of Delphinium as they bowed cordially under the weight of their precious water droplets. The bees are busier than ever today, Doreen thought, watching one with bright yellow pollen patting its thighs. It reminded her of watching Shakespeare at the local college last year. What fun. She'd have to drop a hint to Harry, her husband, later tonight to make sure he gifted her season passes again this year. What a joy, she thought, lost in pleasure, as the purse strap of Patty's pocketbook slipped around her neck and tightened firmly with a twist. Tightened again. Twist, twist, twist. As the hose shot straight up into the air and rained down like a soft summer shower, Patty leaned close and whispered in her ear,
"Grandmother's recipe, my ass. Good night, Doreen."
Patty hobbled back to the car, hair stuck to her face like a wet dog, and got in. Gerald winced. "The seats, Pat!" and shook his head slowly, speeding away from Doreen's body as it soaked in the mud below the gushing hose on her front lawn. Patty scribbled out the entry, "Doreen stole my pot roast recipe," from her book and slid her finger down the list.
"I'd love to take care of that Dr. Jones,"
she said. "Oh, that's not his fault, hun. We knew the risks."
"Oh,"
Patty whined and moved on to the next name. Hank Roberts had been running late that day, and Tommy's body was blocking the driveway. Hank exited the house, looked down at the helpless boy, sighed, and squeezed either side of his nose bone with his thumb and his forefinger in a dramatic display of muted frustration. Tommy was too weak to call for help, too startled and in too much pain to move, so he watched as Hank walked to his slick black luxury car, dumped his briefcase in the passenger seat, and walked towards the boy slowly. When his light brown decorative leather shoes were all that Tommy could see, he felt the bike lifted and then shaken vigorously until Tommy's limp legs fell to the pavement. Hank hurled the bike, which smashed hard onto the sidewalk before toppling into Gerald and Patty's lawn. "I'm next," Tommy thought, closing his eyes and waiting to be chucked. He felt the firm hands of Hank underneath of his armpits and braced for impact. But the man simply dragged him to the curb and set him on the grass. He removed a hanky from his pocket and dropped it on Tommy's face. Hank returned to his car, got in, and left without a word. Gerald's Buick came to a puttering stop in the driveway of Hank's house and clunked it into park. His cell phone rang. It was Tommy.
"I'll take care of Hank,"
Patty said.
"You explain things to Tommy."
Gerald looked into Patty's darkening, sinking eyes and soaked in her features. Time was passing quickly. Soon she would be something else, something he didn't recognize. But he would love her just the same. Nothing would change that. Gerald gazed out the window as his wife limped to the front door. How long could they keep on like this? Things were inevitably becoming more dangerous, but she could handle Hank. He must be 85 by now. Gerald thought, and turned his attention to his phone.
Hey, Tommy boy. I got some tough news, buddy.
After 46 years of living next to Hank, Patty knew exactly which faux rock had the key inside. She entered the house to find it spotless, as if Hank Roberts' big quiet secret all these years was being married to Mr. Clean himself. To her right was a living room with a perfectly vacuumed white carpet and furniture that had quite possibly never been used. And to her left was a long dining table where, at the far end, Hank lay slumped over, face pressed against the glossy finish between a bottle of expensive single malt scotch, a crystal rock glass, and gripped loosely in his right hand, a small six-shooter with a short barrel, like a gangster in a 1920s picture. Patty stood thinking as she scratched her cheek. Her once invisible peach fuzz that made her face so irresistibly soft as a young woman was now starting to lengthen and curl like a fluffy, transparent beard.
Dad, you're not making any sense.
Tommy's voice crackled through the phone.
Stop playing games and give it to me straight.
I've told you everything, Tommy. There's no cure for this sort of thing. It's an experimental treatment.
This is a stupid joke, Dad.
Tommy continued talking, but the words were intercepted by a sharp crack from inside the house as Gerald caught sight of a flash behind the curtains of Hank's dining room window.
Let's say I believe you. Let's say this isn't some kind of cruel joke. How much time does she have left, Dad? Dad? Hello?
Tommy was talking to the pavement. Gerald had dropped his phone in a geriatric power walk for the forest green front door. He paused with his hand hovering above the brass knob. He wasn't supposed to exit the car. No evidence left behind, not from him. If he touched this knob, happily ever after was never going to happen. Gerald's mind raced. There was no way Patty had a gun in her pocketbook. She would have told him. This was Hank's gun, and if Hank got Patty, it would get him too. Without Patty, there was nothing to live for. The door swung open, and Gerald instinctively threw up his hands in defense, shielding his eyes, as if despite his osteoporosis, his forearms could stop the bullet. The casings quietly clinked in place as the gun was raised. The hammer pulled back and clicked into place. It was a good run. And at 76 years old, who could ask for a more exciting way to go? If only the plan had worked. If only...
Looky what I got!
Patty's voice tingled through his body like an orgasm of relief, and Gerald began to cry. Patty held Gerald on the front step for just a moment before inviting him inside the garage to explain the new plan. After the gun went off, Patty had an idea. She raced upstairs and grabbed a suit, shirt, and tie along with a large brimmed hat and brought it down for Gerald. They swapped cars. Jerry slipped on the slim leather driving gloves that were hanging over the steering wheel, sheathing his fingerprints before getting in, and clicked on the air to make sure that the tinted windows of the Lincoln Town car stayed raised in order to protect his true identity. With the garage closed and the plan in place, Patty leapt into the passenger seat. She was changing more rapidly now. The fuzz on her face was long and curly, her nose was darker and slightly textured, and her height, she must have lost a foot just between Hank killing himself and getting the new plan together. Now that they had a weapon, they could work more quickly. Patty, one by one, scratched people off her list of did-me-wrongs as Gerald pulled up alongside them in strip mall parking lots, multi-level garages, and in their own driveways. Helen Flanders was a lousy middle school principal. Cheryl Wilkinson didn't allow seconds at the church picnics. Jacob Wallace's daughter broke Tommy's heart in 10th grade, and he was obviously raising her the wrong way. There were 5 bullets left in the revolver when they found their new homes in the gray matter of those who had crossed Patty and Gerald. It was time to head back to Hank's house to clean up and leave the adventure behind. Patty could still talk, but her legs were shortened and thinned out. Her hands and feet shrunken, and her face was starting to elongate. The white, cloudy fuzz on her cheeks had spread all over, and her breasts were completely gone. Her clothing hung off of her body, making it all the more difficult to move around. Patty allowed Gerald to step inside Hank's house while she reset the scene. As long as he was wearing the Hank suit, the chance of him leaving DNA behind was slim, and she didn't know at this point if she'd need help. The change was happening so rapidly, and Patty was becoming more comfortable walking on all fours.
But how did you get him to pull the trigger?
Gerald asked as he wiped the revolver clean and slipped it carefully into Hank's limp, dead hand.
He was already here, holding it, with that booze half gone.
I knew he wanted to, and I think when he saw me, he thought I was some sort of horrible vision, a ghost, maybe a demon. So I just whispered, "You know what you did. You know what you deserve." And he whimpered a little bit and stuck the gun right in his mouth and pop! They both took one last look at Hank, then carefully exited the house. Patty wagged her new tail as Gerald swapped the cars back, and she leapt into the front seat when he popped the door open. They drove home with Patty's chin resting on the edge of the open window, smelling the sweet scent of freedom. When they arrived, Gerald removed the Hank costume and watched it burn in the fireplace from the comfort of the living room couch. Patty curled up on the pillow next to him in a tight ball and sighed deeply. Gerald would never hear her speak again. By morning, her transformation was complete. The next morning, Gerald got ready for their walk as reporters on the TV in the background speculated on Hank's killing spree and suicide. He put the collar Patty picked out around her fuzzy neck and told her she was a good girl. He clipped the lead to her collar and made her sit.
"We'll head to the doctor tomorrow, Patty, and make sure the cancer's gone. And then it's you and me. Another 15 years of adventures."
As the door shut behind them, a woman on the TV standing outside Hank's house mentioned a small flip phone that had been found, smashed to pieces as if run over in the driveway. It was early morning. Dawn was warming up the California sky, and as Patty did her business on the neighbor's lawn, a mailman walking by asked Gerald what kind of dog she was.
"Some sort of poodle mix,"
Gerald said. "One of a kind, if you ask me," said the mailman as he kept on his path to work. Gerald smiled, leaving the mess behind as they continued their walk into the sunrise. Now they were man and man's best friend, Gerald thought. It felt like a dream come true. But even the best of dreams can slip into a nightmare. Not too far back, lurking in the shadows of the bushes, a coyote stalked them from behind, eyeing itself an easy meal. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching my new story today. Please subscribe and share the story around if you liked it. Haunting Season was created by me, Joshua Sterling Bragg, and is a joint production of Believe Limited and Matt Gielan. Haunting Season is executive produced by Patrick James Lynch with Ryan and Matt Gielan, with creative support from Cody Dugan, Jessica Richmond, Mel Forrest, and my wife, Courtney Barber. Today's story was edited by Colby Crow, and the podcast was edited by Drama del Rosario using music made exclusively for the show by North Innsbruck. Check out Haunting Season on TikTok for daily doses of horror movie reviews and nightmare fuel, and thanks again to our sponsor, Nightmare Fuel, powered by AutoCrit. That's it for our show today, but remember, we're more likely to survive if we stick together. We'll see you next time.